I'm just going to start a backup recorder now. It's always good to have more than one because sometimes they fail. You know it is. I'm in Oxford, UK.
Oh,
Um,
excellent. I was in Glastonbury last year, so
oh right, not at the symposium, was it?
I had done a conference there with Portal to Ascension, and then I did a retreat. I had a retreat. We
All
went
right.
Agile and yeah,
It's lovely there. Yeah, I went to the
yeah.
Glastonbury Symposium last year. It was brilliant. Where's the? I'm just waiting for the backup recorder to come on. I think it's going a bit slow. Probably. It's taking its time. Don't worry. We'll start, Laurie. We'll start. Okay.
Okay, do you want me to pause? Because I can pause.
Oh, here it comes. Right.
Uh, You're good.
I'll just press start recording. There we go. And the backup. It won't interfere with the main recorder. It's just like Okay. So, hey, how are you doing? You all right?
I am good. I am
Oh,
really good.
great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. This is we're on the HPANWO show on HPANWO radio, and I've got Laurie Wheeler with me. So it's great to talk to you again. It's great to talk to you at last. Um, I've got to thank a lady who put me in touch with you. Um, is it it's her name? It's on the Conscious Awakening at network.org.
Yes, Sheila Seppi. Yes.
That's yeah, Sheila. That's it, Sheila
Yep.
Seppi.
Hmm.
And I've had a look at your website, which is wellnesswithin.net.
Yes.
Oh, great. That's now if any listeners want to check that out, you'll find it at in the show notes. So you can find out everything Laurie and I are talking about. You'll be able to find out more about. So that's great. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do, Laurie.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I have been in energy work for about 30 something years now. And I kind of came by way of it. Well, I've always channeled. I used to channel, or I have channeled Yeshua, Jesus, since I was 5 years old. So I've channeled for many, many years. And but I had sort of an awakening when my family and we built a house in New York State, and we built it on, which, unbeknownst to me, native burial ground. So it sort of gave me a rude awakening spiritually, I would say, sort of a punch in the head is more like it. But also, it was toxic water, well water, and we became sick in many different ways. And so I lost my memory. And what I had to do was I really had to learn how to become intuitive because there was nothing else to really rely on. I couldn't rely on my memory to tell me things. And so, when push comes to shove, you don't get a choice through that. So that's sort of how my second awakening came. But also with the spirits on the land, I also learned how to cross spirits over, how to work on the other side, across the veil. And I learned to bilocate, which is, if people don't know what that is, it's being in your present moment, but also being in another time. And so it was quite interesting how they taught me, Spirit taught me how to do that. So
Nice.
that's kind of how I came into it a while ago. And from there, it's just progressed through my desire to learn more. And I've had many experiences, and I work with many interdimensionals, angelics, codes, all kinds of things. Yeah.
It's kind of like a mediumship type experiences you have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the channeling. You see, like it's interesting that you had this experience of your house because I know several people have had this experience with their house of
Ah,
the burial grounds, the Amerindian burial grounds, which sometimes date back to prehistoric times, and the idea that spirits appear a lot happens. I mean, there's a guy called Keith Linder actually. He lived. I don't know if he's in the house anymore because it was so haunted, but he had a house near Seattle in on the other side of the United States, and it was a brand new house, but he was having so many ghostly experiences. And my friend Steve Mera went to his house and did a research. He went all the way there to check it out, and that was on a burial ground as well. And funnily enough, he was also channeling the idea of channelings. The word these things appeared spontaneously, but
mhm.
he also he experienced the ghost of Irish immigrants as well from from the past, from the colonial era, things like that. But
mhm,
you know, but now you mentioned Yeshua. No, I don't know what it'd be like because I know that Americans tend to be more religious. I mean, I know that in this country there are people who are Christian,
right.
probably more so in America. But and of course, lots of people believe in Jesus and they believe in Jesus Christ. Um, but I don't know how do they respond to you saying that you were like having conversations with him in that way?
Well, I think I was very careful who I would tell that to, of course. And I
Hmm.
was brought up in Catholic understanding. That lasted till I was in sixth grade. And then I decided that didn't work for me anymore at a young age. So I guess I don't know really why it was necessary, but it was part of my family culture. So, but I would have regular conversations with him and I could see him. He would come and speak to me. He still comes and speaks to me, uh, actually frequent enough, I would say. So he's still in my path, and but I think he's in many people's paths, and he's here for us. You know, his spirit of coming into Christ consciousness and understanding what that is, and opening our hearts and dropping into our hearts. You know, that's what he's about, and yeah, I think that's what our time is about. So I'm sure he's with many people.
It shouldn't be too controversial, really, because let's face
No.
it, when people pray, what are they doing?
Right. Yeah.
They are saying they're communicating with this divine spirit, Jesus,
Right.
and what's there's nothing. I mean, I know that it could be controversial in some areas. I mean, but I don't think I personally think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's people express their faith in different ways. There was a lady called Shirley Bolstock I interviewed. She's from a very Orthodox Jewish background. Her family, but they accepted her. They accepted her as she was. Are your family okay with you and what you do? If you
Uh,
don't answer if you don't want to,
no,
but
no, that's fine.
mm,
You know, I've written a book. I asked them to read. They were brought up in some of it. They know what I do. You know, whether they believe or don't believe, we really don't talk much about it. They're not where I am in my understanding, but that's okay. I really can respect wherever they are, wherever they need to come into, and you know, there's this mutual respect that goes on. But
that's good.
beyond it, I don't know.
But it's good you found this kind of détente because I've had to do the same with my family because I believe a lot of things which they don't. My daughter's a bit more open-minded since she got older, but she wasn't as a teenager. So that's good. It's good you managed to do that. On the subject of bilocation, now I've heard that word a few times, and this is something I believe happened spontaneously to me at some point. I was actually at a UFO type conference, a UFO paranormal conspiratorial type conference, and I suddenly found myself in the very same room, but it was different. A few things were different. Like there was a big table and people were sitting around it, and they were dressed, I would say, in a kind of retro way, and it was. I believe I possibly saw something that happened in that room many years earlier, many decades earlier. It only lasted for a few seconds, and no one actually saw me where I was in the room. I was in the room with them, but none of them saw me. And then suddenly I was just back where I came from. Um,
Mhm.
would that be a good description of bilocation?
Yeah, as long as you are aware that you're in that room and simultaneously, wherever you go, wherever else you go, you are there and you feel yourself, your presence there as well. Because you're, like it says, by location, you are in absolutely two locations. For me, when what happened was I was in the backyard of my land and I felt the tree, this old tree calling to me, which was on the burial ground, I found out. And I walked in the back and I leaned up against the tree and I was immediately taken to another place, but yet I was still in the place that I was. And it was very clear to me. I didn't know what that was called for some years after, quite a few years until I read more about it. it came to my understanding. But what was important is that I was to understand what was going on the land. Another timeline is really what it was. I just jumped timelines and was there, needed to understand what was happening, because understanding the puzzle pieces then helped me help people or spirits cross over. And then I was actually taught by the elders how to seal the land so no one else would incur anything that they shouldn't. So it was a great learning, actually.
Yeah, and the so this was essential. You do you believe that you were being asked to help, and from your side, from the physical world, you were being asked to help?
Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. They told me that. They told me that that was the reason we bought the land, so that there was, and I get goosebumps as I say it now, years and years later. Um, yeah, I was to help those cross over, not only the young spirit that was caught in my house because we built a house, and so we, intruded in her area, but she didn't know she was caught between worlds. So, accessing her father to come and release her and bring her across. But then there were other spirits on the land as well, so helping them cross as well. I know that, they asked me if I would help and guide that, and they would tell me how to do it. And they would teach me many things actually thereafter. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
my capabilities really opened up. One thing that many people really don't know, and we could get into this a little bit if you'd like. I met Dwayne Ollinger of Blind Frog Ranch, which is next to Skinwalker Ranch. I met
All
him
right.
years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago at a conference. And actually, my husband met him first, who was in another place, and said, "You should have my wife read for you." So he came in and I read for him, and I told him a lot of different things that were going on in his life, which he said to me, "How would you even know that?" And I said, "Well, that information is being opened so that I can share with you what's going um, on the land, under the land, over the land, everywhere." But then he also has a partner, Charlie, and you can see him on Discovery Channel. He's got a program there, Skinwalker Ranch. And I read for
I've seen
Charlie.
there's a TV series I've seen of
Yeah,
that.
it is. It
Is that
is.
the one?
It's quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's several, but I think the latest one is very good.
Yeah, well, they're getting
Mm.
in deeper. They're learning more, because there's a lot going on. There's multi-levels going on. You have the Native American factor happening there. You have the extraterrestrial factor. When we were on the land, one of the first times we did a shamanic journey. I led a journey, and actually the reptilians came above and came to see what we were actually doing on the land. I also met some gold beings, very small gold beings, which later on I actually found. Dwayne took us to some petroglyphs, and you actually can see the carvings in the stone of these beings that I met there. And they were quite benevolent. They were beautiful beings. They shared a lot of information. But one of the fun things when I first met them, the one being came up to me and kind of tipped its head a little in an odd way and telepathically said to me, "We are as curious about you as you are about us." And it must have heard me, in my mind thinking, wow, I'm so curious about this being. So it answered me. But I'll just mention one of Dwayne's partner, Charlie, on the program. I read for him as well. He was a detective at the time, and one of the spirits of a case that had gone cold for quite a while, she came to me while I was reading for him and showed me exactly where her body was, so that her family, that they would open the case and that her family could put everything to rest. And I think it was within a couple months later, Dwayne had called me and said that they reopened the case and that they did find her body just where I had mentioned. So,
Wow.
and I've done other police
Mm.
activity, years ago. So these are the capabilities that opened when, connecting to spirit and remembering who I am. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's because that's an aspect I think of paranormal investigation you don't often get. I mean, Steve, to his credit, I mean, he did a good job with Keith's house and with his with the other guy. What was the other guy who went with him? I don't know, but two of them went over from England and investigated. But
Hmm.
I suppose it's a scientific study, gathering data, gathering evidence of the presence of the spirit. But I suppose the question you have to then is, well, what exactly is this spirit? I mean, we know that I know enough to know that spirits have spirits of the departed. I mean, they're truly incarnate, they are permanently incarnate beings, but they're the spirits of the departed, that's people who lived as we did as human beings. They do retain some memory of the life they lived.
Absolutely.
I've had experiences myself with um funny enough, I'll tell you very, very briefly, it's a long story, I'll shorten it, but I encountered when I started a relationship, I long time ago in 2016, I had a relationship for 8 years. I'd just been dating this my partner, and I just left her, and about the third time I've been to see her, and I encountered a spirit on a train when I was in a semi-conscious state. I was in half asleep. I was in the hypnagogic state, and that's when I had incidentally, that's when I had that time slip I told you about, and I saw him, but I didn't know what he looked like. I'd not seen any photographs of him. He died in 1988, long before I met Susan, my partner, and when she showed me a photo of him, I was astonished because I couldn't have imagined him, you know. So he had some memory of of the life. He had ability to see into the world he left behind. He was
Mm.
doing what a living father would do. He was caring for his daughter, wondering what kind of men were hanging around her. He's probably following me around to suss me out, you know. It's just understandable. And but I mean, it's like I suppose that I mean I don't know what it's like to be a spirit. Obviously, we're all going to find that out one day. We probably have had that experience before, but
Mhm.
the question is, what do they want to know? Are they trapped? I mean, you mentioned you helped them pass over. You were asked to help pass over. Are some trapped in the same way that, for example, in movies, there's been some interesting new films that have come out quite recently, which tell ghost stories from the point of view of the spirit, such
Right,
as The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis, and
right,
there's Ghost with Patrick Swayze,
right,
but
right.
which tries to explore what would actually not forget what the humans actually investigating the ghost. What if what if the central character of the film was the ghost? What's it like to be a ghost? You know.
Well, yeah, so I can't speak really firsthand from complete conscious memory, but I've done enough regressions, soul regressions with people. I do past life and between lives. And so I get a good smattering of information. And I do, working across the veil and speaking with many and such, and working with spirits, the presence of spirits, each has their own frequency, right? So when we call in, when we say, say mom's passed over and we want to talk to our mom. When we put that energy out, that's a specific energy, a specific frequency, resonance, and that speaks only specific to that. In other words, it magnetizes, it calls, it brings it in. And usually often we have to be in a little bit different brain wave, not the beta, sometimes a little bit deeper, like more the alpha, where we're taking some deep breaths and quieting the mind. I think that's why when you were partially asleep, it came in for you, or why that happens for many people. And why we do hypnosis and all of that, because you're lowering your brain waves so that you can access the information and access them. And then oftentimes the ancestors, our ancestors will hang around to be part of our guidance system, because they really still feel strongly how they love and care about us, but it's in a bit of a different way than what we experience here on earth, because we have baggage and conditioning and things of that nature. Once you cross over, you don't have that like that, so it's different, yet it is a loving experience. And so when you talk about like not completely crossing over, like let's use the movie Ghost for example. Yes, there is a place that so in other words, when a person's spirit leaves their embodiment, there's a time, and it's funny to talk about time, but there is a time lapse before they completely cross. And so some, if it's been a horrific death, a startling death, it depends on how attached they are to those that are still on Earth. There's different conditions why they will get stuck. And so, like on my land, there were many. What happened was there was a small war party that came upon a larger tribe and actually had killed many of the tribe. And so, because it was such a horrific death for many, those souls were still wandering on that land. I mean, we could, my dog knew it. She would bark in a certain area of the house. I could feel it. We would see spirits or dark shadows moving through the house. I mean, we knew there was something going on. You had this feeling like when you would go out, you could feel something kind of watching you. You knew it. So even if you didn't know, you could feel something. And so they'll oftentimes communicate through electricity because we're electromagnetic, because a lot of energy that is transmitted is electrical energy. So, this is one way that they'll access us, also while we're sleeping or in these lower brain waves. I'm going to mention that I'm working with a quantum biologist, Dr. Glenn Rain. This is significant to what we're talking about right now, because we work in research together. He's a quantum biologist. He has the equipment to measure electrical energy and how it affects DNA. And so I can transmit energies, those spirits. So we're talking about the presence of spirits, each having its own energy. And we transmit certain ones to enter into the DNA. And I work with these codes also. And so we're transmitting energy in, and then he measures it and he checks to see how much conductivity is going on with that DNA and how it's affecting the DNA. And so it's quite interesting to see the calibration and to quantify this for research in science.
Yeah, you mentioned DNA and electrical energy and things like that. I mean, I'm familiar with, for example, the electronic voice phenomena, which is kind of like it appears to be some kind of attempt of communication. But as for DNA, so is there? I mean, going back to the idea of electrical energy and healing, is there some connection there? Does it actually cause, for example, and our body has an electromagnetic field.
Right.
In what way does it change DNA? And DNA is this very complicated molecule in the center of our cells and things like
Right.
that, and which of
Yeah.
course it affects the way we grow and the way we change. And of course, it's the fundamental to our health. Your DNA health can, for example, if it's healthy, you age more slowly, you can live longer, things like that, and
Right.
you have less diseases. But how does that actually work?
Well, you have biological DNA and you have spiritual DNA, and there are imprints, energy that holds information. And our DNA is made up of coded information, as is everything else.
Would this be
Every
like, sorry to interrupt, but would this be like what Rupert Sheldrake talks about when he mentions morphogenetic fields? If you're familiar with Rupert Sheldrake.
I'm not, I've heard of him. I've
Hmm.
heard of his work, but I'm not really privy to what he speaks directly about.
Well, because he says that he believes that DNA, he said that DNA manufactures proteins, the building blocks of
Yes,
life.
it
But
does.
he said he believes that the molecule itself, the physical molecule, has been overrated, and it's essentially been. He believes there is like something else beyond it that
Well,
actually,
yeah,
which
there
sounds
are
like.
atoms
Mm.
and subatomic particles, and when we get into the different energy patterns is what what also affects our DNA. So the different light frequencies and different patterns that come in. So we're electromagnetic. We know AC/DC, you plug into an electrical outlet, right? We know there's scalar, we know there's quantum. Being able to see all of them, they move in different ways. And it really has to do with the movement and the pattern of that particular energy. And it just adjusts as we move into different types of energy patterns. But they do speak to our DNA, and it's about what do I want to say? Sort of engaging with it and disengaging that which is a part of it. So when it comes to DNA, our biological DNA, and where we have an inheritance, let's say, of cancer. So that's still alive in us. It's still imprinted in it. So it's about disengaging that and not having that produce an outcome. Well, our spiritual is very similar to that. But it has to do with different frequencies, more in a spiritual way. Those that connect to us, the higher energies that connect to us, and that our higher chakras, beyond our 7 chakras, connect to our spiritual DNA. The lower 7 connect to our biological.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go to any doctor, they'll say, "Well, that's crazy. That's nonsense. It's
Oh, yeah,
nuts."
I
I
know.
mean,
Yeah.
well, I was a hospital porter for 23 years, and I've seen the healthcare system from the inside, and I have a lot of criticism of it, and
Mhm.
it's I know there are doctors, medically qualified, who've disagreed with that consensus, and they've ended up paying for it really heavily. They've actually lost their licenses and things like that. Ghislaine
Mhm.
Longto and people. She's a Canadian lady. I don't know if you know Ghislaine Longto.
Mhm.
She a few years ago she became she was a doctor in Quebec, Canada, and ended up being struck off because she said some of the things that you talked about. I mean about the spiritual side of things. So what's I mean, I'm always curious because there's some people who like have a tendency towards good health, and others seem to have a lot of health problems, and these are not necessarily related. These different health conditions, and there's also not there's no identifiable syndrome connecting them.
Mm.
So,
Well, a lot of it is inherited, and depending on where you're coming from, your biology, what is activated, the stressors in your life that activate things going on in your systems. And then, depending on what you're doing to rectify, if you're filling your body with all types of chemical medicines and such, your physical body is going to have a much harder time releasing and healing, changing that, whereas working with something that can match the energy that is imbalanced. So for instance, I'm a homeopath of 30 years. So it's an energy medicine that works with mind and body. And we look at a whole person, individual, who you are in your mental, emotional, and physical makeup. And there's main threads that run through. In traditional medicine and doctoring, they are more site oriented. I'll say, if you have a wart on your toe, if you have a bad back, if you have eczema, they're not looking at the whole person, not looking at the root situation. And so in order to clear something like, say, breast cancer becomes activated because you have a stress in your life with your mother, then that can be inherited. It can also be due to the stress. And then if you go and do chemotherapy, you may or may not release that completely from your system. Yeah, it's particular to every person what they're coming in to work through. Some people have a lot more than other people to release and clear because possibly in other times they did not clear as much. It's very particular question to answer in a sort of way.
yeah. As far as homeopathy goes, now I know a lot of people who've had good results from homeopathy, and
Yes.
I would never discredit it in any way. But the plausibility issue is it's very well known. Skeptics go on about this all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so hyper diluted. You would have to drink a glass of water the size of the solar system to get one molecule of active ingredient because it's been diluted 100 times. So how does it work then if it's just water?
It's not, though. It's not just water, it's energy. So energy transposed into either some substance, some type of medium, whether it be pellet, liquid, or whatever, sustained in that. And then, like anything. So, it's an example like this. If you looked at me in a grocery line and you gave me kind of a dirty look, it would make me feel a reaction. Okay. So, energy creates reaction, right? And I'm not the first to say this,
Hmm.
So it's what your reaction is. So when you find something that matches a lot of the symptoms and you're given something that also can create the opposite effect in the system, then you're going to have a reaction to that.
Oh, I see. So it's a kind of like a it's why like works like a kind of vaccine then on a spiritual level. Then.
Yes, kind of like a vaccine on a spiritual level. There's no actual substance in it, but there is energy. And we know energy. Like if you took a lamp cord and you plugged it into the socket, I can't see the energy, but I know there's energy in there, right?
Well, the
How do
lights
we
on,
know
yeah.
that? How do we know it? Because we can measure it. So
Hmm.
this is what the the scientist that I'm working with, and I are doing. We're calibrating and measuring the conductivity of that energy into DNA. So here's an example. I work with these codes, okay? These codes have been given from different star beings. They've been put together and they found their way to me. Now, you might think, well, they just look like squiggles, but it's the energy that's held in them. It's just like if you were to write your name, there is an energy held in your name because everything is energy, right? If so what we did is we took the codes, the writing of the codes, we put the DNA on it in a container. He measured it. It came out a certain percentage. I think it was like 6%. An hour later, he measured it after I activated the codes and transposed them into the DNA. Okay. And the amount of energy was 142%. What did we do different? Nothing except I activated those codes. I woke is not a good word.
Yeah.
I engaged with the energy. So if you and I were just to sit and look at each other, I wouldn't know exactly what you're thinking unless you tell me. And why? Because it reverberates to my ear and I make sense of the language. I can put it into a language I understand, but it's just energy moving to me. It's the same thing. It's activating and engaging. That's what activating is. It's engaging with something.
Yeah, it's excuse me. Yeah, I've noticed a little bit about that because water in particular seems to be a very good receiver and it repeats these. It can reproduce these patterns very well. I mean, Greg Braden, you know about Greg Braden, Heart Math
Yeah.
Institute.
Yeah.
He's written a book about that as well. And
Mhm.
I was interested in Masaru Emoto, this
Oh,
Japanese guy,
yes.
because he
Hmm.
froze. You know how he froze the water
Hmm.
and it would even just putting a sticker with a message on the side of the container would change how the water was actually came out. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff. So you do like spirit adventure tours. What's that all about?
I do. I love this aspect that I work in. I take people on retreat to different sacred places in the world. And we've been to Mexico, Peru, Hawaii. Last year we were in Glastonbury for 5 days, went to Tintagel, went to Merlin's Cave, Stonehenge, all, and we had amazing time. And then we went over to south of France to follow the Magdalene footpath to open up to the divine feminine. And this year we go to Egypt in November, and I've been guided to go there. We're going to spend 11/11 in the King's Chamber in Egypt and activate, initiate, bring about remembering is really what it is. And the energy right now of Egypt is so incredibly up leveling for people. We're remembering our time because it has to do with taking us through the densities into another dimension. And what that means is viewing our reality in a different way. I mean, that's what it is. It's your perception of the universe and the aspects in which you look at the universe and see your reality. And that's what's changing. That's what's going to move us out of 3D into a different dimension.
Right. Yes, there are certain places you can go to, which I like that. I mean, Egypt is one of them. Glastonbury's a place I've been to several times, and last year I wasn't there at the same time as you, but I went to the Glastonbury Symposium in July, which is a really, really cool event. It's a really great event to go to. And I found it changed me. I was like, there is an energy of an area, I believe, that has an effect on people. So for example, I found myself becoming, on the one hand, very joyful and ecstatic, and I felt incredibly uplifted. But at the same time, I found myself being hypersensitive, and I sometimes became quite irritable because harmless things that people said felt to me like insults, like I was becoming paranoid,
Mm.
as if I was becoming, as if I developed a kind of very thin skin. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I had to apologize to a few people because I was very irritated. I was snappy with them at some point, sullen, and it's weird because I'm not normally like that. But this Glastonbury driven me into those extremes.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I think,
Mm.
yes, I absolutely do. So we know that Glastonbury is the heart chakra of the earth. Okay. So now what you're saying makes perfect sense, right? So it's uplifting. You're feeling the polarity of your heart, that which pains or what holds in your heart, and simultaneously knowing the beauty and the magnificence of who you are as a person. And it's a dichotomy in a sort of way. It's like feeling these two aspects of you, and it's all of you, you know. And what's very difficult is to feel the pain of who we are, you know, the
Mm.
shadow side. But the shadow side, it's interesting, you know, we all want to get rid of the shadow side, but the shadow side is there to teach us, to help us
Yeah.
propel into the light so that we want to be of the light, so that we grab hold of the light. And some do, some don't. But it's how we grow ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, other places have had an opposite effect on me. For example, last year, well, a few months ago, it was actually November. I went to Las Vegas. Um,
Yeah.
there was a place called Stairway to the Stars. You know what I mean? Because you laugh because you understand that that place doesn't get
uh,
on with a lot of people don't fit in there if you're
it's a
it's
heavy energy there.
yeah
Heavy, there's multi things going on simultaneous. It's one of the dark places, you know, it
yeah
really is. Yeah. And it holds it. So, you know, in timelines, you know, so let me just explain what a timeline is for viewership if they don't know. Time does not exist in the way that we think of it, like in a calendar, day by day by day, hour by hour. But that's outside of our dimension that it exists like that. I mean, in our dimension, it exists like that, day by day and such. Outside, it has to do with gravity. It has to do with 3 dimension. It has to do with that. When we get outside of that, there are multi times happening simultaneously, multi thousands of different times happening. So, you know, you could say what was going on in Vegas 40, 50 years ago is still going on, but we're standing in current time today, but we still can feel that happening. Same with Glastonbury, right? It's gone through a lot of its changes and it's working to change others, but it carries the energy from long ago. And that's what people are called to, that experience, because they want to feel that. And that timeline is in existence right now. Same with Egypt. It's very high energy. It's there to bring us to remember, help us remember what and who we are. Very important right now.
Mm. Oh yeah, I mean, a long time ago, decades ago, in near Las Vegas, there were numerous nuclear tests.
Mm.
And this was before. This was in the 1940s and 50s. People didn't realize the danger of doing nuclear tests near a populated area, and radioactive clouds covered the whole place. And the place all through the 20th century and to now, it's been a place of shallowness and materialism.
Mhm.
And I could feel it. I really could. I became quite ill. I wasn't irritable with my friends. And if anything, I became very close to my English friends I went over there with, and I sort of clung on to them. But
Mm.
I didn't leave my hotel room for 2 days at one point because I was really ill. We went like 5 days before the conference. Once I got to the conference, I was fine. I don't know if you know Stairway to the Stars.
Oh,
If you've
yes,
heard,
I do. Very much. Yeah. Hmm.
it was a brand new one that's just started. It
Right.
was lovely. Once I
Yeah.
got there, I was fine because
Yeah.
I was back in that high energy state. Because it's
Yeah.
actually very similar to the Glastonbury Symposium. It's bigger, actually bigger and more elaborate, but it's
Hmm.
very similar to that. It's
Yeah.
well worth going to, I'd say. And that was at the Luxor complex, which is all designed to look like ancient Egypt. It's in a big pyramid, a big black pyramid.
Right.
Um, but so I do think this sort of thing is real. It's of course because I mean I have illnesses that can't be treated. I mean I've had illnesses in my life, nothing life-threatening, luckily, but I've had annoying and painful and uncomfortable illnesses, such as eczema. I've had skin problems. I've had numerous skin problems you mentioned. And although I take cream and I've done urine therapy and things like that, which the urine therapy is very good actually. It's much cheaper than any cream. You just get it free
Right.
from yourself.
Right.
Just wee in your bath, basically. It's
That's
simple as
right.
that. That's very good for your skin. But it's never it's sort of come and gone, but it's attached to it's connected to my state of mind, my state of being.
Mhm.
I've come down with other illnesses in the last few years. I split up with my partner, who I mentioned, and that was very painful. Um, I've had other things such as my first daughter was stillborn, and
Oh, sorry. Wow.
thanks. And so when my second daughter was born, I mean she's fine. My second daughter, she'll be 30 soon. I mean she's grown up. But when my second daughter was being born, I had terrible tonsillitis.
Mhm.
My throat just became and nothing would shift it. It felt to me like some kind of biospiritual mutiny,
Mhm.
like my very body was attacking me, or my soul, or something subconscious was making me do this, and I'm still experiencing that today.
Mhm.
And I'm not even I haven't even bothered to go to my GPs because I know there's all they could do. They could give me some cream or something, but
Mhm.
it wouldn't do any good. Yes. So I had hands-on. The best results I've had is from hands-on healing,
Mhm.
which I had at a spiritualist church, which was really nice. So that's a bit like Reiki.
It is.
Mm,
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes it's good to look at what's going on in a person. What are
mm,
they feeling at the time of illness? And that will tell you a lot of information. And then what's going on in their life also.
yeah.
So how do they feel about things? And what is actually going on? And then you look at the illness, and you can usually derive some information out of that. And that's how we find out what a little bit deeper understanding of things, you know. So if you think about your throat, your
Mm,
tonsils, they absorb poison, you know, because that's what
mm,
tonsils do, right? Could have been something at the time, you know, really bothering you, fear, holding your thoughts or what you wanted to say back, It could be numerous things, and I don't want to go into it, on
Hmm.
air right now.
Fair
But
enough, yeah. But
yeah,
I can see what you mean. Yeah, it's because my skin. I don't have the skin problems now. I don't have those anymore. Those are gone. I don't have hay fever anymore.
good.
But I've still, I still feel like I had an argument with my father and things like that, and that made me feel ill.
Yeah.
Um,
So emotion really affects a person.
yeah.
So it's what we say in my scope of type of healing. If the ground is fertile, then it will grow. But if your ground isn't fertile, meaning if the stress isn't there, whatever it is that comes into contact, because you come in contact with all kinds of bacteria, viruses, fungus, you name it, every single day, really, all kinds of
Hmm.
microorganisms. Why is it that only at certain times you will get something?
Well,
Most
this
of
is
the time
the
you can ask somebody, it's something stress related affecting them. And maybe it's been for a little while and then, it happens, the reaction.
this is the theory of the germ theory versus the
Yeah.
environment. I mean, I can't remember the actual term, but there was this debate between Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp, these two French doctors, and Pasteur sort of won, and Pasteur became the kind of like
Yes.
the kind of godfather of modern medicine, which was about like, I mean, I understand hand washing, I understand you need to do that and things like that, but it got to the point where he was saying, well, basically, humans are best in a completely sterile environment, which is not true.
No, it's not
If you were
true.
in a if you're in a sterile environment, your immune system would cause all kinds of problems for you, and it does. It does if you live in too clean an environment, and things like asthma and things like that, and eczema come out of that. I think they're autoimmune things.
Well, we're created to be in a symbiotic relationship.
Terrain theory. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have some of the worst type of bacterias, viruses, molecules going on in your system, microorganisms, I meant, going on in your system, but because they live in a balance. And so what it really says is that we have to keep ourselves in balance, and this is the real key. So many people now are looking at how to create balance for their life. So, I want to say part of during the COVID situation, what happened was people were staying home, they weren't interacting as much and such. And we began to look at ourselves and began to think about what was important, not important, making changes in our lives. And some of our friends and family we were disconnecting from because we realized they were creating problems in our lives, and so and this is still going on right now, but I think we came into a better awareness of this aspect for ourselves. Of course, the time is just right. This is when it's supposed to be happening as well. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the 11/11. I'm going to come back to that because you're
Sure.
going to experience the 11/11 in Egypt. Um, I've heard about, I remember the 11/11 thing began sort of like soon before the 2012 Mayan calendar day. Do you remember that? And everyone kept saying, I keep looking at the clock and it's always 11/11.
Mhm.
And I saw
Yes.
11, I saw this random number and it was 11/11. And what's that all about? And why is it so important to go to Egypt at these and places like that at these moments?
Well, they're high energy moments. They're when things are, the energy is of a I want to say the portals open for the energy. It's like the Lion's Gate during August and other times of the year, solstices, let's see, the Mayans knew that there were at certain solstice when the light came in and it hit a certain way. When I was in south of France, one of the small uh, sanctuaries that were built with the statues through the stained glass on September 17th at a certain time of day, the light would come through the stained glass and highlight just a particular part on a statue that was information coded in that statue, in that understanding of what that statue meant. No other time throughout the whole year. So these times are very important for us. They allow us, enable us to activate and initiate new happenings for us. And so being in the King's Chamber, where so much goes on, so much history, so much energy is still there. So one of the beings that I work with, I channel the Sphinx actually, and have for a while. And I'll just let people know that I've been in the Sphinx. You're not allowed to go in it, but I've been in it. It's brought me in. And what it does is it teaches you who you are, why you're here. It opens up the path for a person to understand themselves. And so each sacred place has this, and at certain times it becomes activated. And so that's what we're going to be doing there is opening ourselves to be activated.
Oh, cool. You say in the Sphinx. I mean, the
I'm
is there
sorry, in the pyramid, in
in the
the
pyramid? Oh, I see.
chamber.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
you channeled the Sphinx. The Sphinx
I
is a
do.
yeah, because that is it's been revealed recently. It's much older than the other artifacts on the Giza Plateau. Maybe several millennia older.
Yes, and
Because that's
actually,
rainwater erosion patterns, and there was no rain. It was still dry in Egypt in the ancient Egyptians because they had to wait for the flooding of the Nile to irrigate the land
right.
because it didn't have rain. But it used to be wet. It used not to be a desert. Yeah.
Well,
Um.
they do feel that the Sphinx. So actually, I'm going to reveal something. I don't know if everybody knows this, but there actually were two Sphinxes. There was a male. I don't know if Sphinxes is the plural, but there was a male, and the one that exists now is the feminine. And then when one of the pharaohs came in and changed the facing of it, but it was there to built, and a lot of information is held in the Sphinx. This is what she tells me. Everything mankind needs to know is right here. That's what she tells me. And that's powerful when you really think about it. But how do we access that information? It's there. It's for us to access, but we have to come to a certain point for us to be able to really utilize what that information is telling us. That's why where we are right now, we're not farther where we are than where we are, because we're not ready to hear what is on the horizon, so to speak. Yeah, but it has a lot to share. So do the hieroglyphs and the walls of the temples and such. They also want to share information. So I work in psychometry, which is I can put my hands on something or be close to something, and I can hear the history, and I can tell what it's saying. And so I want to translate that for people as well.
Yeah. That's true. Psychometry, of course, is another thing that the more open-minded police detectives will do, like this guy
Yeah,
Charlie you mentioned. Yeah,
yeah,
if they're more open-minded, they will. Of course, it's not admissible in court, but it could be very helpful to get into the stages where you can gather evidence and things like that.
yes.
Yeah, definitely. That's. Do you believe, therefore, that humans are, in a sense, we've well, it's an ancient idea that is repeated in Christianity and Judaism and Islam, which is that we've fallen from a state of grace. This was the symbolic story of Adam and Eve. I mean, I don't believe Adam and Eve literally existed, but it's an allegorical tale about our relationship with the divine, that we fell
Hmm.
from a state of grace, and the mission of humanity is to return to that state.
Hmm.
Do you
Right,
believe that?
exactly.
And
I do.
mm,
But I assign a little bit of a concept is, when we call it fallen from grace, the only the only aspect of that I can really understand is that I haven't gone anywhere, and that nothing is different. It's my illusion that creates that. I am who I am. We are all magnificent souls. We learn through our egoic self. So that's what I believe it really talks about. But I don't believe that anything, I believe that I'm still divine in my way. I'm just coming back home to that.
mm, Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting concept. I mean, it's the one thing the divine can't have, which is to become itself.
Right.
To because if it is all and knows all, I suppose maybe it just gets bored and thinks,
Well,
all right,
I don't
let's
know if it's such a thing board. This is what I hear through the codes also. As they share with me information, they tell me where our souls are like, and life is like a kaleidoscope, you know? So if you've ever looked through a kaleidoscope, source begins, okay? And source wants to know everything and more and more and more and more. And when we reach a certain point, we're going to come back and kind of do it again, but maybe in a different flavor, right? So it's this concept of the kaleidoscope constantly changing, constantly. But as it changes, it grows, it learns more. This is what it's about, you know? And to look at it intellectually, you say, what? You know,
well,
I want to do that,
hmm.
you know?
Well, another of my guests, a regular guest, actually, Anthony Peake, he often talks about. It sounds a bit like what he talks about the infinite recurrence and the you go through cycles and cycles and greater cycles, and eventually you eventually get somewhere. You eventually arrive at a certain place in this eternal journey, but the journey doesn't end; it goes on to other things and etc. Now, I wanted to ask you. There's another thing I wanted to ask you about here from your website: dream vision. Now, is this to do with like actual dreaming?
Well, you know, dreaming, when you ask a shaman that question, a shaman will tell you that the reality actually exists in the dreams and that this is not our reality. So what's, you know, it's like the question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, it's a matter of perspective, as is everything, right? So when you look at dreaming, dreaming can be lucid dreaming, it can be meditation, it can be any type of outside of your real intellectual thinking, you know? And that's why I call it dream vision, because it's all about what you envision during this sort of like what we think dreamy state, you know? And we all do it. We all stop for a moment, like we kind of, you know, get caught for a few minutes and then we come back in our head again. This, you know, we do it quite often, every single day, you know, numerous ways. And so, yes, I think about it's just a different way to see something.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm interested in dreams themselves. Funny enough, sometimes I can't remember dreams. I get little tiny little kind of like clips of them, tiny little. It's the moment it appears in my head, it just disappears. A moment, they're like that, and then they come, and then more come along, and then I remember them. And so, for example, I had a little sleep this afternoon, and I remember the dream I had very clearly. It's
Mhm.
it's it's. I remember I was in this hotel, and it was a bit like the one I stayed at when I went to Contact in the Desert, where I just been. But it wasn't the same place. It was very different in many ways, and I was trying to help someone find their luggage and things like that. It was very, very interesting. I sometimes wonder where these things come from. I mean, the idea they have a deeper meaning, of course, even materialists like Freud accepted that they have a deeper meaning
Right.
and they reveal something about yourself which you don't necessarily know in your
Yes.
own world. I mean,
Well,
like,
you know, dreams can be multi things happening. So some dreams are about how your subconscious, which is your conscious pulling in and storing in sort of what I call the back shelf, and then it comes awake and alive at night when we give it more permission and the mind chatter quiets down. So we're holding different things, patterns and ideas and things in that up on that shelf, it comes awake. So let's take something, you know, like I remember having a dream many, many years ago, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was in my dream. And I thought, what's Arnold Schwarzenegger? And then I asked myself what I would say to somebody. Well, what does Arnold Schwarzenegger mean to you? What's my reaction? My reaction is, well, he's this very strong, man, and powerfully, physically powerful, and that. And so in the dream, that's exactly what it was. And it was depicting something of power and strength. And so now you can start picking apart your dream and understanding it better when you understand the themes behind the symbols, because that's just what they are, symbols. But then there are other times where we go other places, when we don't stay. Part of us goes off somewhere else. We're visiting all different places, having different experiences, and you may be bringing in parts of that. There's another aspect of the soul in that we're not only in one place. Our soul, depending on the wisdom of your soul and your maturity, you may be in multi places simultaneously. You could be on another planet. You could be in another part of the planet itself, like Earth. You could be in numerous places. And again, this does depend on the maturity of your soul, how many times, how capable, and all of that. So we'll say young souls really don't do this like an older soul does. And so you may be also receiving in some way some type of energy information coming from that happening as well. So to just dissect a dream, it's not so easy.
Yeah, I mean, in my dreams, I'm often in different places. Obviously, I don't feel I'm in a different place now. I mean, that's presumably I might bump into myself. Otherwise, I might actually meet myself,
Right,
which would be a
right.
bit embarrassing. I wouldn't know what to say to myself. It's but is it like are you talking like different worlds, different dimensions, parallel universes, things like that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It could be all kinds of things going on, And
Mhm.
as we're waking up more and we're coming in tune, we're coming into a higher attunement and a higher resonance, we're more capable of receiving and actually being aware of that now. So I hear that with people's dreams as I take information. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there, I think, Laurie. But it's been great to talk to you, and it's been really interesting. I'm sure
Lovely.
we could talk for much longer about all kinds of other things because you obviously have a wide variety of different knowledge fields and activities. So it'd be great to get you back one day, get you back on the show. But this show, I mean, I know we're talking to each other. We've got the camera on, but it's audio only, so we don't need the images. Just nice to be able to see each other, I think. It's not as
Okay.
easy. It's much easier to talk to people when I can see them. But this show goes live 8 p.m. It's just because we're pre-recording now, but every 8 p.m. every Thursday UK time it goes live. And I'll send you the notice. Don't worry, I'll send you the notice. It'll probably be next week, but it could be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It depends. But I will let you know in advance. And when the show's gone live, it's immediately a free podcast, which you should be able to download. I'm still working on. Well, what I do is I'll download it and put it into archive.org so that people can download it there. If the Spreaker system doesn't work, it's a bit of an ongoing problem I've got with my station. But so if people want to know more about you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website and send me, their contact information. That's probably the easiest way. And
Mhm.
that's wellnesswithin.net. Easy to find. I also have a Roku channel so they can find all that information. Those links are on my website. Yeah, it tells a little bit about everything that I do as well.
Excellent. I found other interviews with you as well online, so people can listen to other people talking to you, which is great. And I'd say to listeners, like if you go to the show notes right now, you'll see a link to that particular website. So get in touch with Laurie and let her know you're interested. And well, Laurie Wheeler, thank you very much. It's been
Well,
great to talk to you.
oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I loved sharing with you. And if don't hang up, I just want to mention something when we're finished here.
Yeah, sure. So this has been the HPANWO show on HPANWO Radio with me, Ben Lynn Jones, and Laurie Wheeler. So thanks very much. Okay. Yeah, that's the end. That's it.